I'm bored. I am currently in Canada, in Montreal, Quebec, and I'm in a hotel where I'm gonna spend 3 nights in quarantine. So I'm basically watching planes through my window, and that's it. So yeah, I can definitely say I'm kind of bored. So I told myself, let's make a video, because actually, I mean, I've been through a lot, you know, that was a new experience, like, whole process to come here, and so I was thinking maybe you can share that. I'm currently studying and doing a PhD with a partnership between 2 schools. One is in France, in Lyon, and the other one is in Canada, in Sherbrooke. When I signed my contract, because a PhD is a contract between you and the school, and for me it's between the 2 schools. But first, my first school is in France, so I signed a contract with my school in France. I needed to sign and actually to make a contract between the 2 schools. And in this contract it is written that I am supposed to spend half of my time in France, in the school called INSA, and half of my time here in Sherbrooke, in the University of Sherbrooke. A PhD being in France at least 3 years long, I have to spend 1 year and a half in France and 1 year and a half in Sherbrooke. So I am here for 6 months, from May 8th to November 6th. As you may know, there is this kind of weird situation we are in, this pandemic, which made my travel being way more complicated. So I'm here to share with you a bit, like, how I did this and what I've been through. So let's start. So as I just said, the first step for me was to make this contract between the 2 schools. So I was in this school in Lyon, in France. I had the model of a contract that I had to complete, and it has to be signed by at least 7 different people from this school in France and from the school in Sherbrooke. That was super time consuming, because first I needed to write all the conditions, everything needed to be written in this contract, the studies I needed to follow, the conferences, the courses. PhD means you are still a student, so you have to attend courses and all this kind of amazing stuff, right? You have to send it, wait for the response, and then send to the other person, and wait for the response, and this 8 times. I think that administration in Canada is way faster than in France, because in France you have to wait for such a long time just to get, I don't know, a paper or something, and in Canada always less than 24 hours. There are so many ways to be stuck in this administration. Research in France is being so low recently. Researchers in laboratories just spend their whole days dealing with administration stuff, and they just don't do science anymore. This is my meal, so let's continue right after. Let's talk about the CAQ. So this is the certification you have to get before going to Quebec specifically. This is an online request, so you go on the website of the immigration of Quebec. So once you got on this website, this is quite easy. Everything is listed, everything is very clear, so there is no way you can miss something. Though I needed to request it twice, because you have to prove you have enough money to afford your life in Quebec for a long period of time. And at the time I only sent what I had on my bank account, which wasn't enough. So I asked my PhD director to write a letter for me saying that I actually had a salary, so every month I have an income which is enough for me to stay in Quebec for a long period of time. So the second time that was okay, and finally they sent the certification to my house. So that was an actual letter. This is not a mail or something, this is an actual letter. In order to request this certification, you have to pay something like I think it was between 50 and 90 Canadian dollars. In the end, they sent my CAQ, and so I could ask for my permit, my study permit. And this is a request to do online too, but on a different website. This is the government of Canada. It's not the Quebec immigration website, it's really the government of Canada. I think their website is very complete, like you can find the answers to all of your questions. The first time I had some troubles with the website, I don't know why, there was like a bug or something, so I needed to cancel it and do the request again. And I had to find that by myself. You have here just like the CAQ to give papers about your studies, so your inscription letter in the Canadian university, you have to give your CAQ, your financial proof, just like for the CAQ. So that was all done. Once you did the CAQ, it's very easy to complete the study permit, and then you have to pay for this study permit. You have to proceed to the request at least, they say at least 3 months before you leave to Canada. But actually mine was very fast. I don't know if it's because there hasn't like a lot of requests at the time, or if it's usually faster than expected. So in the end, they send you an email with a letter saying you have to show this paper to immigration agency at the airport when you go to Canada. So you need to print this paper and keep it with you. This is super important. You have to have this paper when you go to Canada. Now I have my CAQ, I have my study permit, I need to plan the travel. So between the day I had all my papers, like official papers, and the day I started to plan the trip, there was like 2 or 3 months, even maybe 4, because in the other hand I'm going to Canada for my studies, so I need to have good reasons to go there, like manipulations or machines to use that are specifically here in Canada and not in France. You know, I had to find a reason that matches with where I was in my studies. It took months to manage to find a date I could go there, because everybody, both sides, my directors in France and in Canada, needed to agree on that, and that was a whole stuff. I was tired of that, and I said, okay, I'm going to Canada these dates, and that's it. Like, because every time it was, oh, maybe later, oh, maybe later, maybe later, and I was supposed to go to Canada in January, and in the end, it's May. So due to the pandemic, there were also a lot of things to plan beside in order to fit to the government restrictions and the obligations. There is a list of things you have to do before going to Canada. So you need to do a PCR test at least 72 hours before you take the plane. So I've been there and I did the test for the first time. That was woo. That was itchy more than it was painful. If ever this test is positive, you have to cancel your travel or report it, like postpone it for later. As you have to do it at least 72 hours before your flight, you obviously have to book your flight before you take the PCR test. Once I finally planned all my trip from my home to Sherbrooke, I sent all my travel plan to the secretary of my laboratory, who is in charge of booking all the transportation in the hotel. So I really did a whole plan, like very detailed, with all the links. Like, I'm gonna take this train, it's leaving at this time, it's arriving at this time, and then I'm gonna take this plane which is leaving at this time, arriving at this time, then I'm gonna go to this hotel. So I chose the hotel, I'm gonna stay there 3 nights, and then I'm gonna go to Sherbrooke with this shuttle. That was all written like this. So I sent it to her and she told me, actually we're gonna ask an agency to do that, like a travel agency. Okay, so I spent like 2 weeks to do that. They have special travel agency which they can pay actually. That's quite specific, like they can pay this company and this company is gonna choose for you, but they can only give money to this company or this company. They cannot choose anything, like so complicated. This is French administration. You can buy into the A shop, but the B shop you can't, just because it's not in the list. You have to register the shop, which is a procedure which is gonna take months, because like 10 people have to accept to put this shop in the list. That's insane. The laboratory couldn't pay for the hotel, so I had to pay for it and then being refunded. So I had to take a train from Lyon to Paris and then the plane from Paris to Montreal. The train the secretary chose was arriving less than 2 hours before the departure of the plane. And usually for an international plane, you have to arrive at least 2 hours before. Usually it's 3 hours, and I was arriving 1 hour and 45 minutes before. So if the train was late, I was missing my plane. I took my train, it was on time, I was lucky because a French train, always late, right? I arrived at the airport, it was 1 p.m. My plane was leaving at 2:45, but you have to get on the plane at 2 p.m. I checked the departure screen, they say Terminal 2E, and on my e-ticket it was written Terminal 2A. The secretary booked the train a bit short because she said the Terminal 2A was close to the train station at the airport. I was like, okay, let's check the Terminal 2A. So I just had to walk up some stairs, and then I went to Terminal 2A, which was just there, and there was a white wall on the whole terminal, and I was like, what the hell is going on here? Did I miss something? So I got closer, and there was a paper saying that all the flights, they were moved to Terminal 2E, which is on the other side of the airport. Terminal 2A was closed because of the pandemic, of course. I went there. The company Air Canada was very far in Terminal 2E. So I walked all the terminal. Hopefully there were nobody. So the woman asked for some papers to show her. So the hotel for 3 nights, my e-tickets, PCR test, my passport, of course. So I gave her, she took my luggage and she told me, so you have to get on the plane at 2 p.m. It was 1:15, something like that. You have to go to the door L49 and you should go now because there is a small train to take to get there. Cool, I don't have time, so I ran to the custom police. I got in the line and then I noticed that actually I was in the wrong line. I was close to the gate. I was thinking it's gonna be fast, that's okay. But there were a family just in front of me and they went to the gate and the police officer, I don't know, they refused them. And it was 1:15 and then it was 1:40. I was starting to stress a bit as I was watching people on the other line pass and pass and pass. There was a woman in charge there, so I asked her if I could go on the other line. She was nice and she let me pass. 2 seconds exactly to pass there, and I was waiting there for like more than 20 minutes. Then I got to this train, drove me to the gate L, and of course the L49 was the last one. I needed to run there. Finally I arrived at the gate at 2 p.m. and just at this time they were starting to open the gate, so I directly entered the plane. They checked my temperature. We were like 20 in a huge plane. I arrived in Canada on time. Then I went out the plane, I went to immigration, I asked for my permit. It took me like between 10 and 15 minutes, something like that. So she took my paper, she told me to wait, and then she gave me a fancy paper which is my study permit. Now I'm authorized to stay in Canada until 2023 with no restriction of time between this period. You know, I can stay 3 years if I want. I went pick up my luggage that was just there. Like, I was arriving, the luggage was arriving. That was perfect. After that, I needed to take another PCR test, and then they gave me another one in a box that I have to do before ending my quarantine. I need to check that. And this is, I hope, the third and the last PCR test I have to do. Finally. I took the taxi, it took me to this hotel. It took like 10 minutes, $25, but hopefully the hotel was refunding, so. And then I'm staying here in this bedroom for 3 nights. I didn't have any troubles with the papers I showed, or if you follow the rules, there is no reason it's not gonna work. But in the end, I'm here, and even with the pandemic and all the restrictions from the Canadian government, I'm gonna make it. I have work to do, I'm gonna take time. I'm bored in Canada, so I cannot complain.